March 7, 1963. The Lenox Lounge, Harlem. Two men sat across from each other in a corner booth where the light didn't quite reach. One was expected to leave in a body bag. The other was supposed to make sure of it. Joseph "Jelly" Armentrout had been Bumpy Johnson's shadow for 11 years. He carried a .38 special in a shoulder holster and had never hesitated when the order came. Tonight, the order was simple. A lieutenant from the Genovese family named Sal Vitello had been skimming off the top of the numbers operation. 3 warnings had been issued. This was the 4th conversation. Vitello sat with his back to the wall. Standard protocol. Jelly sat opposite, hands visible on the table. Also standard. The bar continued its Thursday night rhythm. Low jazz, quiet conversation, ice clinking in glasses. No one was watching. Everyone was watching. Bumpy Johnson himself sat 15 feet away, reading a newspaper he wasn't reading. He didn't look up. He didn't need to. Vitello spoke first. He always spoke first. He offered money, territory, a peace arrangement that sounded reasonable to anyone who didn't understand how power actually worked in Harlem. Then Jelly did something no one expected. He put his gun on the table between them. Harlem's numbers racket in 1963 wasn't just gambling. It was infrastructure. It was employment. It was the shadow economy that kept 30,000 families fed when legitimate work wouldn't hire them. Bumpy Johnson didn't invent the system. He perfected it. He understood that control wasn't about violence. It was about predictability. The numbers ran every day. Collectors showed up on time. Winners got paid in full. The moment people stopped trusting the system collapsed. This was the foundation everything else was built on. The Italian families downtown wanted Harlem's revenue. They'd been circling for years. Small moves. Collector turned here. A banker bought there. They assumed Bumpy would eventually bend. Old man. Ex-convict. No political connections. No legitimate cover. They misread the situation entirely. Bumpy didn't maintain power through fear. He maintained it through mathematics. Every dollar collected was accounted for. Every operator knew their percentage. Every police captain knew when to look away and when to show up. The system worked because everyone understood the rules. Sal Vitello represented a problem that couldn't be negotiated. He was Genovese family, connected, protected, confident. He'd been placed inside Bumpy's operation 6 months earlier as a partnership gesture. A liaison, they called it. What he actually was, a test. The skim started small. 2% here, 3% there. Amounts that could be explained away as accounting errors. But Vitello wasn't stealing for money. He was stealing to prove a point. To demonstrate that Bumpy's control was negotiable. That Harlem could be managed from downtown. That the old man's time was finished. This was his mistake. Bumpy gave him 3 chances to stop. 3 private conversations. 3 opportunities to walk away with his life and his reputation intact. This was unusual. Bumpy didn't typically offer second chances, let alone third ones. But Vitello kept taking, kept pushing, kept assuming that Bumpy's restraint was weakness. It wasn't weakness. It was documentation. Every dollar Vitello stole was recorded. Every lie he told was witnessed. When the final conversation came, there would be no ambiguity about why it happened. That's why Jelly was sitting across from him now. The gun sat between them like a statement neither man wanted to read. Vitello stared at it. Then at Jelly. Then back at the gun. His hand didn't move toward it. That would have been suicide and everyone in the room knew it. But leaving it untouched meant something else entirely. It meant the conversation had rules he didn't understand. Jelly leaned back. His hands stayed visible. His voice stayed level. Pick it up. 2 words. No explanation. Vitello's jaw tightened. He glanced toward the bar where Bumpy sat motionless behind his newspaper. No help there. No signal. He looked back at Jelly. This some kind of test? It's an opportunity. The jazz trio in the corner finished their set. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was structural. The kind of quiet that makes people aware of their breathing. The bartender wiped down glasses that were already clean. Two men at the bar paid their tab and left without finishing their drinks. That silence mattered. Vitello reached for the gun. Slowly. His fingers wrapped around the grip and he lifted it from the table. The weight felt wrong. He checked the cylinder. Empty. He looked up at Jelly. Something close to relief crossed his face. Then confusion. Then anger. You think this is funny? Jelly didn't smile. Didn't blink. I think you don't understand what's happening. Vitello set the empty gun down. Harder than necessary. The sound echoed. I understand plenty. You're trying to scare me. You've been taking money that doesn't belong to you. I've been taking my cut. That was the arrangement. Your cut was negotiated. Your skim wasn't. Vitello's face flushed. His voice dropped. You don't know what you're talking about. Jelly reached into his jacket. Vitello flinched. But what came out wasn't a weapon. It was a ledger. Small. Black. The kind bookmakers used. Jelly opened it to a marked page and slid it across the table. Vitello didn't want to look. He looked anyway. Numbers. Dates. Amounts. 6 months of theft documented in neat columns. His theft. Undeniable. This was the evidence he thought didn't exist. We've known since the second week, Jelly said. Bumpy let you continue because he wanted to see how far you'd go. How much disrespect you thought you could get away with. Vitello's hand was shaking now. Barely. But enough. The family won't. The family won't do anything. Jelly's voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. Because the family didn't authorize you to steal. They authorized you to observe. You got greedy. You made this personal. The bartender turned up the radio. A news report about Birmingham. Protests. Police dogs. No one was listening. Vitello pushed the ledger back across the table. So what happens now? Jelly reached into his jacket again. This time what he pulled out was loaded. Jelly set the loaded .38 special on the table. Not between them this time. Directly in front of Vitello. Pick it up. Vitello didn't move. His eyes tracked from the gun to Jelly's face to Bumpy's back at the bar. Still no signal. Still no movement. Just the newspaper and the posture of a man who'd already decided how this ended. I don't understand what you want. Yes, you do. The statement hung there. Vitello's breathing changed. Shallow. Quick. The kind of breathing that comes before decisions that can't be undone. Vitello's hand moved toward the gun. Stopped. Moved again. His fingers touched the grip but didn't lift it. If I do this, if I walk out of here, you won't walk out of here. The words were delivered without malice. Without satisfaction. Just fact. Vitello pulled his hand back like the gun had burned him. Then what's the point? The point, Jelly said, is choice. Bumpy could have had you killed 6 different ways. In your apartment. In your car. Walking to church on Sunday. He didn't. He's giving you something most men don't get. Most people misunderstand this moment. Vitello laughed. Short. Bitter. Hollow. You're insane. Maybe. Jelly's expression didn't change. But you're the one who stole from Bumpy Johnson for 6 months and thought there wouldn't be consequences. The radio played Sinatra now. Fly me to the moon. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Vitello looked at the gun again. Really looked at it. His hand trembled as he reached for it. This time he picked it up. Held it. Felt the weight of a loaded weapon. He pointed it at Jelly. Jelly didn't flinch. Shoot me, Vitello said. His voice cracked. That's not how this works. Jelly leaned forward. Close enough that his voice carried only to Vitello. You have 2 choices. You can put that gun to your head and pull the trigger. Quick. Private. Bumpy spreads the word you couldn't handle the guilt. Your family gets a story they can live with. Or what? Or I take the gun back. And tomorrow morning they find you in the river. And everyone knows why. Everyone knows you stole. Everyone knows you begged. Everyone knows you died screaming. Vitello's hand was shaking violently now. The gun wavered. I have people. The Genovese family won't let this. The Genovese family already knows. They didn't send anyone. That truth landed like a physical blow. Vitello's face went pale. His eyes darted to the door, to the windows, to the other patrons who were very carefully not looking in their direction. "This was a test," he whispered. "They wanted to see if Bumpy would. And now they know." Vitello lowered the gun, set it on the table, pushed it back toward Jelly. "I can't. I won't." Jelly picked up the gun, checked the cylinder. 6 rounds. He stood slowly, walked around the table, stood behind Vitello's chair. The entire bar went silent. Even the music seemed to lower. Jelly pressed the barrel against the base of Vitello's skull. Point-blank range. No distance. No mercy. No escape. He didn't pull the trigger. He handed the gun to Bumpy Johnson, who had appeared beside them without sound, without warning, without wasted movement. Bumpy looked at Vitello, really looked at him. Then he set the gun on the table and walked out. This was the decision that changed everything. Vitello sat frozen in his chair for 17 minutes after Bumpy left. No one approached him. No one spoke to him. The bartender served drinks. The jazz trio started another set. The world continued as if nothing had happened. Because nothing had happened. That was the point. Jelly stood by the door, waiting. When Vitello finally stood, his legs barely held him. He walked past Jelly without looking at him. Past the bar. Past the other patrons who suddenly found their drinks fascinating. He pushed through the door and into the Harlem night. He was on a bus to Philadelphia by sunrise. Gone from New York by noon. The Genovese family never asked where he went. They didn't need to ask. The message had been delivered with perfect clarity. This was how real power operated. The numbers operation continued without interruption. Every collector showed up on time. Every banker paid out winnings in full. The system didn't pause, didn't stumble, didn't acknowledge that anything unusual had occurred at the Lenox Lounge on March 7, 1963. But everyone knew. That's how power actually works in systems built on reputation. Violence that doesn't happen speaks louder than violence that does. Bumpy Johnson could have killed Sal Vitello. Should have, by every conventional rule. But he didn't. He made Vitello live with the knowledge that he'd been weighed, measured, and found so insignificant that even his death wasn't worth the bullet. The sound that changed history wasn't a gunshot. It was silence. The absence of violence when violence was expected. That silence echoed through every numbers operation, every protection racket, every territorial dispute in Harlem for the next 5 years. The Italian families downtown adjusted their approach. No more test cases. No more liaisons. No more assumptions that Bumpy's age meant weakness. They'd learned what Vitello learned too late. Bumpy Johnson's power wasn't maintained through fear. It was maintained through certainty. The certainty that he controlled not just the violence, but the decision of whether violence was even necessary. Jelly continued as Bumpy's bodyguard until Bumpy's death in 1968. He never spoke publicly about the Vitello incident. Didn't need to. The story spread anyway, the way stories always spread when they carry weight. Each retelling added details. Some true, most false. But the core remained accurate. Bumpy Johnson had given a man a loaded gun and the man had chosen to run rather than use it. That choice became the template. Not just for Bumpy's operation, but for how power was understood in Harlem's underground economy. Violence was easy. Control was hard. Anyone could pull a trigger. Only someone who truly understood power could make the trigger irrelevant. The Lenox Lounge closed in 2007. The booth where Vitello sat is gone. The bar where Bumpy pretended to read his newspaper has been renovated twice. But people still tell the story, still argue about the details, still try to understand how a man who didn't fire a gun managed to send a message that resonated louder than any execution. Bumpy Johnson died of a heart attack on July 7, 1968, in Wells Restaurant on 7th Avenue. He was 62 years old. Hundreds attended his funeral. The numbers operation he built outlasted him by decades. Sal Vitello died in 1991 in a nursing home outside Philadelphia. No one from his old life attended the funeral. No one remembered him as anything except the man who ran. Sometimes the most powerful sound in history is the one that never happens. The gun that stays on the table. The trigger that doesn't get pulled. The silence that speaks louder than any explosion. That's the sound that changed everything.